Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and welcome to a Pro Cycling Manager 2020 Pro Cyclist Mode tutorial. We're going to get primarily into setup, and then we'll get a little bit into what to do within the races, what to aim for through the season, and long term. We begin from the character creation screen. The first choice that matters is what region you select for your rider to be from. Now, if you want something easy, you're just starting out, you want an advantage of some kind, this is one place where you could actually really pick up an advantage. If you picked a nation that is not terribly popular in the world of cycling, you have a chance to actually really succeed in your national championship. But not all nations actually have one. Taiwan, for instance, I don't believe they actually have a national championship you can get involved in. So what you want is something kind of middle of the road if you're going to go for that. If you go too small, you're not going to have a competition. If you go too big, like say, where are you hiding? France. You're going to have a heck of a contest on your hands every year. Italy. Great Britain is another example of one that's going to be a real challenge to take on. If you go for a smaller nation like South Africa, competition's going to be much easier. Czech Republic, another example of one that you could have a small field to compete against for your national championships. Otherwise, it makes no impact on the playthrough. So I will typically, most years, most playthroughs, choose my home nation. Potentially the most important part of the entire playthrough of Pro Cyclist Mode comes down to your main and secondary axis that you choose, along with the potential. Though the potential definitely has an impact on the playthrough, it's something that you can overcome. Beginning with that, you have 4 choices of Grand Champion down to very good. Your rider will never have poor potential, but at Grand Champion, you're gaining 2 things above each subsequent level below it. 1, every month, the amount of experience your rider gets is higher on Grand Champion down to significantly lower at very good, meaning it's harder to level up with that lower potential. And then the second feature is your base attributes have a limit to what they go to. That limit is much higher for Grand Champion. A lot of your attributes will be able to max out at 85. Some will drop down into the mid-70s. If you go just with very good, you're going to have some of those down to the upper 60s or very low 70s. You're only going to see 1 or 2 attributes that could potentially reach that 85. So it's much lower, but as you level up, you can actually increase potential. You could spend some of your levels on increasing potential of your rider, so you can ultimately get to Grand Champion. But it's harder. It's going to take longer, and it's going to take more levels to do so. Now, your choices for main axis are 7. And outside of a pure domestique, which is just a teammate, that's the only other role in the game and in the sport besides what is here. Now, technically, no one is a domestique by trade. They're just not strong enough or good enough as a rider to warrant a higher role. But that doesn't mean that they don't have a higher role. They're just training as a climber or training as a sprinter, so on and so forth, but they haven't developed yet to be good enough to take on that role in earnest, and so they serve the team as a teammate, as a domestique. That main axis, the breakdown of each one of these briefly for those who are unfamiliar with the sport and really need that beginner's touch. For everyone else, you can skip forward a couple minutes. A stage racer is someone who is taking a multi-stage race from 3 days to 7 days to the 21-day behemoths that are the 3 Grand Tours. Tour de France, the La Vuelta, España, and the Giro d'Italia. So the Tours of Italy, Spain, and France are the biggest races of the year. Those 21-day races that involve everything from sprinting to lots of climbing to time trials, occasionally a cobbled stage, those take a master class, and they are considered the best riders in the world. So most people will take a stage racer their first 2, 3, 4, 10 times that they do Pro Cyclist Mode. Examples of stage racers, historical and current: Chris Froome, Egan Bernal, Alejandro Valverde, Alberto Contador, Lance Armstrong, Eddie Merckx. Climber is kind of a subsidiary of stage racer. Climbers are the ones that can get up those big mountains best, and to win the Grand Tours, you need to be a strong climber first and foremost. But the pure climbers aren't always great at other disciplines like time trialing. A stage racer needs to be a good, strong climber, but they also need to be good at time trialing, and they also need to have good stamina and resistance and recovery. A pure climber can do it on one day, one race, one stage, but not necessarily over a whole 3-week period. It's kind of a subset of stage racing. Likewise, time trial is. You do have individuals that are just climbers or just time trialers, but often those are the 2 main functions that then feed into stage racing. Now, a time trial is an individual stage or classic race. There's a couple examples of that, where you race solo against the clock. There are versions where you have team time trials, so your team races solo against the clock. You're looking for the best time possible, start to finish. So this is the individual who's able to turn a good pace over a long period of time. A sprinter is someone who has a high rate of pace over a short period, just like that of track and field, the 100-meter sprint, and so on. So a sprinter is someone who's often going to fight when you have a large number of riders in the pack and you're coming up on a flat or relatively flat finish line, and they're going to try to get there first. Sometimes that's a one-day race and they're looking to win the race. Others, on those 21-day stage races, those Grand Tours, those are the flat stages that don't involve much climbing, and these are the fastest riders in the world, or at least in short term. Examples of sprinters: current, Groenewegen, Ewan, Viviani. A puncher is like a climber, but it is over shorter climbs, often less steep climbs, but it's still involving climbing. But this is high rate of pace climbing. So the pure climbers are the ones that do it over many, many kilometers. They go up and up and up and up, often switchbacks, back and forth, up they go, Alpe d'Huez. Punchers, well, these are the shorter climbs that you could expend more energy over a shorter period of time, meaning you go a lot faster. Julian Alaphilippe is the ultimate puncher. Northern Classics, there's actually 2 types of classics, and the Northern Classics get their name for a specific reason. The Dutch Belgian lowlands are the primary areas where the Northern Classics take place on into that northeastern edge of France. They are the old cobbled regions of Europe. So cobblestones are the primary attribute for that, but also the other type of classics are the super long stages. So flat rating, cobblestone rating, stamina. They often approach 300 kilometers in length. And finally, Baradur. Baradur is a breakaway rider. These are the ones who spend their days trying to get out in front of the field. Just a handful of riders riding hard in front of everyone with a giant pack of 100, 150, 170 riders behind them trying to pull them back in before the end of the race. It's the least luxurious of the axes that there are available. Thomas de Ghent is a great example of someone who is a pure Baradur, but there are very few of them who actually are well renowned. Most people will take one of 3 axes before any other. Stage Racer, that's probably 2/3 of all Pro Cyclist series are going to be stage racers. But then after that, a sprinter or a classics rider, those are the most popular. The least popular, other than Baradur, is probably time trial, because it's less glamorous and you don't get as many opportunities to do your craft as a time trialist. Climbers exist, but for most people they'll take it as their secondary axis. Puncher can be a main axis, and there definitely are. But most people who take puncher are also going to couple it with something else. They're going to punch it, they're going to add climber, or they're going to add sprinter, or they're going to add classics, and kind of go for 2 areas. But in choosing these, you add attribute points to your start out of your rider. You don't actually have to stick to them, which is exactly what I have done with my Baradur series. The next screen is your choice of team. You're always going to be given 3 teams as an option early on. What's not important here is the contract. Your contract in Pro Cyclist Mode is very much locked into your ability level. So your first year, you will always have the minimum. As you develop and grow as a rider, whatever contract you're being offered, every team's going to offer you the same contract. What does impact it is your ranking within the team will impact your role, what you do within the team. If you are the second best rider of a team of 13 riders, you're going to play the role of leader a lot. Now the real difference is Rally. Rally UHC, you would come in 14th of 17 riders, meaning you are definitely coming in as a domestique. You would be serving the team, protecting the riders. 9th best stage racer, 5th best climber, 10th or worst in every other category. The other important thing besides your ranking within the team is what level the team is at. This matters a little bit less early in your career, but it does matter. There is Continental, there's Continental Pro, and there's World Tour. World Tour is the highest level. You're not going to start there. You're not going to get an offer there. You're going to have to build your way up to World Tour. Continental Pro is the second tier. They will often race against World Tour teams, more prestigious races. They are better teams, which is why your ranking is so much lower compared to those riders. If you want to have a chance to play as a leader from the start, then you definitely want to go with a Continental team. And as you get good enough, you can keep that leadership role as you go up. If you want to stay tucked in and do something easy and learn slowly, you could actually start with Continental Pro, and you'll play the role of teammate for quite a long time. And so now you've selected your team. First things first, you need to do your pre-season. You need to set yourself up for the year. I'll make this one really easy for you. There is only one choice that you should ever have for this. So if you follow the link highlighted here in yellow, it'll shortcut you to the season objectives page where you're choosing your preseason setup. Now this is your fitness level. So the first thing is you want to start with very high fitness from day one because you can maintain it throughout the year. Now you can choose an objective for each third of the season. Your team will pre-select the objectives they want you to have. You can alter them. You can choose the 3 Grand Tours if you want. But in the first year, you're not going to be going to the Grand Tours. I will often mess with this by my 3rd, 4th, or 5th season. I don't bother with this in the first couple of years. I let this happen organically. Or if I'm going to make a change, the first one that I'm going to change is the national championships for my home nation. Because focusing on that is a good thing to start with. You do have to come back to the screen to accept. But again, the main thing, take very high fitness. Now there's not anything else you can do on day 1. You have to get to day 2, January 2nd, before you can really start to alter things because they set you up on that fitness level first. Your team will pre-select what races they are choosing to have you in for the year. Over time, you're going to get points. Those points are used in 2 places. One, your calendar to change your race schedule. And the second place is among choosing your teammates. You can spend points to choose specific teammates if you're a team leader. What I do is I don't care about how I do in Continental or Continental Pro. I'm building for the future. It is when I get to the World Tour, it's when I get good enough to be a winner that I bother with spending those points. Therefore, I save those points in my first seasons. A lot of people don't. I prefer to do that because I'd rather have the points when it counts, when it matters, which isn't until I'm not only in World Tour, but capable of winning. The biggest thing from day 2 is how to set up your training schedule for the year effectively. I told you you could maintain a high fitness level all year long. Well, not only could you maintain a high fitness level, but you can do it without being fatigued. And that's the real trick. Because you could set high training every single day or every week. You set weekly schedules. Set it every single week. But over time, you're going to get fatigued. You're going to get very fatigued. Your fatigue is represented by this red bar. That is your tiredness. Your preparation is the blue. Your fitness is the green. You want to be as high as you can with the green bar, but you don't want this red bar to come up over 50. From 49 and below fatigue, it will have 0 impact on you. 50 and above, it will have a negative impact on your condition race after race, day after day. So you want to keep this below that mark while maintaining the highest green fitness that you possibly can. So here's how you do it. We set that high fitness bar, so instead of starting down here, we're already over 90%. We would love to keep it up here all the time. It won't be possible, but we can keep it in this range all year round. As of right now, you can see our fitness level throughout the year kind of comes in waves, but you could also see this huge amount of fatigue that is going to last almost the entire year. If we trained hard just through the first third of the year and then whatever the AI had already set, we would be ineffective from the first week or second week of February, all the way until October. Here's how you get around it. The best training possible, you have 4 choices. Take a break, light training, medium, or hard training. There's only 2 options that you need 99% of the time. There's a couple of exceptions. It's break and it's hard. Train hard all the time, that's going to get you the highest fitness level. But it's also going to create fatigue. You can't always train hard. You need breaks. The best place to put a break is in a week where you have no races. If we tried to take a break when we had the New Zealand cycle, we're racing 5 days that week. We have 2 days off. 2 days off does not do much to lower your fatigue. See, it does some, but it doesn't do much. You want to time your breaks before this bar is up. When you can, you want to have it in a week where you have no races, or a light week where you only have 1 or 2 days racing, whenever possible. You don't want breaks in back-to-back weeks. Your fitness level is going to begin to drop drastically, even though it does a lot to help with that fatigue. Back-to-back weeks is bad. So the way to do this is you're going to train hard, take a break, then go right back to hard training. And you can see here, fatigue starts to set in. So we're going to go a handful of weeks forward. This is too soon, but if I go here, usually about every 4th week, sometimes every 3rd week, you're going to need a break. Here we're going to go ahead and take a break that week. It's a chance to rebuild a little bit. Throw in the break there. You can see just how easy this is to set up properly. Now, you can already see in here, there is no period where we have no races. So we're going to go ahead and throw it in on this week, even though that next week does have a break. Timing is really important. You've got to try to spread these breaks out a bit. This one is only 3 weeks later. But if we waited till this week to take a break and had a break 2 weeks apart, in fact, I'll go ahead and just show you what this does, how it breaks it up. Fatigue, no problem. Fitness, massive decline. Okay, you don't want them 2 weeks apart. You want to try to keep it 3 weeks apart. And now you can see that we're maintaining at least a 90 fitness level throughout. And you can do that all the way to the end of the year without having any issues. Our base is 50 points per month. Level 1 to level 2 takes exactly 50 points. So we have leveled up. What we get for that is shown here. We get a skill point, and we get to choose between the improvement of attributes or the evolution of our potential attributes. And then it'll also tell you what will happen on your next level, which in this case is the same thing. It's going to then take you into that choice of attributes or potential. Let's look at potential first. Now, right now, evolution of potential. We could potentially land between a 67 and 71 on our flat rating, 85 on mountain, hills, time trial, at each of these levels. Now, if you want a breakdown of attributes, I actually have a tutorial on attributes themselves, breaking down each one, what they mean, how they impact your rider in a race. I'll leave a link in the description below for that and my race basics tutorial, which is also one of the reasons why we're not going to get heavily into that here either. Now, back on the progression of attributes side, early on when you are just starting out, you're going to level up some of these attributes quite quick. Over time, it's going to slow down as you get closer to those maximums, to those potential. So, if we chose Verador, you can see we get all sorts of points up and down the order. I do not, as a stage racer, have to choose stage racing. And if I choose something besides stage racing, it does not stop me from being a stage racer. Your profile is based on what your current attributes are. And as your current attributes grow and evolve, then your specialization might change. Meaning, if I stopped focusing on my mountain time trial rating, I could eventually become something other than a stage racer. For example, if I focused on sprinting, you could see our sprint rating and acceleration would go up a bit, but at 57.65, that doesn't suddenly make me a sprinter. I'm still a much better climber. I'm still a much better time trialist. I would still be that stage racer for a long while before I would become a sprinter. I'd have to have this into the mid-70s probably before I would be classified as a sprinter. So what it comes down to, every time you level up, you want to pay attention to where you're at on your potential. You don't want to get slowed down. So there are lots of times where you're going to need to invest in potential. It doesn't hurt to focus on just leveling up attributes if you already started on Grand Champion. The lower you started, the more you're going to need to spend levels to invest in potential. What I recommend doing is every time you level up, especially if you are going to focus just on the attributes, see what they're going to give you. Don't just automatically take your primary choice. See what a stage racer will give you, classics rider, a puncher, and see how they vary. You can get more points sometimes by taking a secondary choice overall to help your rider. Now the other part to leveling up is you get skill points. This is your shortcut to that. Click on this yellow icon and it's going to bring you here. This was new last year in the game. And some of this is a little bit exploitable. Some of this is much more valuable than other things. Breaking these down for you as quickly as possible, because this can take a lot of time. A lot of it is self-explainable. But there's a few areas you want to start with first. Level 1, I think the most important thing is how quick you level up, because every level improves you as a rider and gets you these skill points. I spent all 3 of my first levels on raising the experience that I gain, and then I start branching out into either performance or race bonuses. I don't worry about discovery until the very end, but after these 3, I will focus my attention on fitness peak with my next 3 levels generally. Training I don't worry about as much, reason being we already took care of that fitness peak. We know how to manage that. Willpower can be useful, but you don't get to use it often, so I put it further down a little bit. But like I said, my first 3 go here, my next 3 go here, and then generally my next 9 will go into the race category. Take care of those 3. Injuries are a commonplace thing. They will definitely happen in this game, in this mode. Not as frequent as your first race brings you down, though. I'd say on average, through the history of this game, I probably get an injury once every 2 years. With going this far into the career, I do get a chance to show you what happens on the contract page. So from the 1st of April and then every month until the contract signing period, which starts in August, you get points of contact to increase the interest of teams that are potentially interested in hiring you as a rider. Now, the team you're on currently will always have a higher amount of interest in re-signing you, but you can see our squad as a whole is only 1.5 stars. It's pretty low. From bottom to top, the teams get better and better on their overall rating. So the highest quality team that's interested in me is this Portuguese outfit at 2.5 stars. They are continental. All the teams right now are continental, but they are really, really close to Continental Pro, and there's a decent chance that they'll become Continental Pro. But their current interest in us is next to nothing. This is the amount you have. You start with 1 every month. It was one of those skill points where you can make that 2 or 3 or 4 every month. Now, one of the key elements of the game is your race day condition. it goes from 0 to +5 or -5 in either direction. 0 is your natural neutral attributes, only affected by your fitness level. And if you're maintaining that 95 plus throughout the year, you're always going to get a slight boost out of that. +5 is the good side. -5 you don't want. There's a random element to that lands on a bell curve. The height of the bell curve is that 0. +1, -1 are going to be the next most likely to happen. +5, -5 are the least likely to happen. But that's a random element. You can't control that. There are things you can control. Maintaining that high fitness level, not having tiredness. But then the other things that you can control, where you can get bonuses. 1, your 3 objectives. You're going to get a bonus for those throughout the year. Joe Martin, that was one of my objectives. So we're going to enter this with a +1 for the objective. The other way is a fitness peak. Now your fitness peak is tied to those objectives. Every day you pick up training points, whether you are in hard training, medium, easy, or taking a break. It is the same. What determines the amount of training points you get per day is what level of potential your rider has. If they are a grand champion, you're going to get more training points every day. You're going to hit fitness peaks quicker. In this case, my rider picks up 1.8 points every day. It's not 1.8. It's actually 1.75. Instead of picking up training points in the middle of a race, you get race points. You get 3 points for every day. So, if you do the math, calculate how many days you're racing versus how many days you're not racing, and you could actually calculate when exactly you can hit your fitness peak, which occurs at 100. If you have all 3 levels for fitness peak already, skill points, you can, that's this one, fitness peak. If you have all 3 of these, the third one, you can trigger it yourself once you're over 90. Now, with a fitness peak, you'll have this full yellow bar with this white line around it. You get a +2 to your race day condition. So you're setting the bar higher. You still have that random bell curve, but you're setting the bar higher. So that's kind of my neutral point. So if I draw a -5, I'm actually going to end up with a -4. If I draw a +1, I'll end up with a +2 on the day. Whenever you enter a stage, you will be given an assignment by the team. My role, team leader. What they want specifically is for me to finish in the top 3 overall, and here's what the other riders are up to. Now, I said the race day condition was expected to be a +1. Looks like I actually drew a -2 on the random element, and I wound up with a -1 for the day. But because I have good fitness level at 94%, it's pretty much countered that. As team leader, I'm given control of 4 riders in the team, myself plus 3 others. The ones that are grayed out, I don't have control of them. They're riding for somebody else. Over the course of a stage, this can change. This is my effort level. I like to stay near the front of the field, so I move to the front with increased effort early on, and then I go into maintain position once I get there, because things happen, and I like to be at the front. Alright, so I've taken another rider to give this different perspective where you play that role of teammate. Now, in this one, we are given the assignment of leading the group for 25 kilometers as a minimum. So, in order to do this, first thing is I need to come to the front through the relay assignment. Now, I can tell you already right now, in general, this does not work in every stage, but in general, at a 66, you will be in the mix with other riders that are leading at the front. At 67 effort, 9 times out of 10, or at least, if not that, 4 out of 5, 80% of the time, a 67 is just enough to outpace all the other riders that are working at the front. Meaning it will put you to the head of the field and keep you there, which is a good thing because you want to finish the assignment as soon as possible. Now, to check the progress of your assignment, there's more than one way to do it. One, for every 25%, you're going to get a little pop-up down here in red, like this attack right now. And you can see I've gone to the front now. You'll get a little pop-up here at 25, 50, 75, and 100% of goal. But the easier way to check this is to go to Race Strategy. And you can see right here, it's going to show you how much progress you've made out of the 25 kilometers. Now, I'm going to speed things along in the background, and you can see this is going to keep ticking up. It only counts when you are the front rider. So these guys that are right behind me, you can see how they're now working at the front. I'm not getting credit while that's happening, even though it's still using more energy for my rider. But you can see with A67, here we are at the front. We're already at 75%. This is the pop-up I was talking about. Our job is not done at 100% though. There is a semi-secret additional, and let's go ahead and slow this down now, additional target. The additional target, the exceptional level, this secret level, it's 25% more. So, a couple ways to figure that out. Multiply your 25 kilometers or whatever your target is by 125%. To me, that's harder math. For me, the easier math in my head is divide it by a quarter. Half is 12 and a half. Half of that, 6 and a quarter. So you need 6 and a quarter extra kilometers on top, okay, of the 25K. Round up. Every time, round up. It will always round up. 6 and a quarter is a very small. In general, we are taught to round down on that type of number. In this game, it will always be a round up scenario. So add 7 to your 25 kilometers, which means 32K is an exceptional evaluation. We are already at 36, meaning job done. I can go back to maintain position. I can now cruise through the rest of the stage. Now, you're going to see a couple things here, at least momentarily, and let's wait until we get one. Alright, so Leknesund has given me an order to come back and protect him. Now, in order to do that, I can right-click on Leknesund, and I can choose Protect, and I'll go back and protect him. Here's the thing. What I am evaluated on is this, not that. You have every right. It will have zero impact whatsoever to ignore all of those little pop-up commands. All they are really good for is the role-playing aspect. If you do want to support your team, go ahead, support your team. Do what they're asking for. When they tell you to pull, pull. When they tell you to go back and protect them, go back and protect them. It has no impact whatsoever. I can cruise through the rest of the stage now and do my own thing. I can save my energy and try to go for the stage win. Now, here's why that makes more sense than the role-playing aspect of protecting a rider or pulling at the front when they ask you to pull at the front. To develop yourself as a rider, you need to focus on yourself. Now, that does involve teammate assignments, like this. But once you've completed the assignment, the reason why focusing on yourself becomes a good thing is if you're in a stage race that has a King of the Mountains competition or a points classification, depending on what type of rider you have built for yourself, you can participate in those competitions. Regardless of whether you win or lose, if you take third in the KOM, the King of the Mountain, you're going to get additional experience points at the end of that race. You're not going to gain manager favorability. You're not going to gain the experience points for working as a teammate. But every once in a while, and you're going to have to learn over time when it makes sense. Every once in a while, The reason why you might want to ignore orders completely is there is way more experience points available to a King of the Mountain winner or to someone who goes on and takes a podium. So you may want to skip orders entirely if it is the type of stage that you think you can do well with your full capacity, with that full amount of energy that you're going to have and that you're going to save by not working for the team. You complete part of the objective and then get to that point where you're about to go into a series of climbs, and you know if you're still working at the front, you're going to exhaust yourself and it's going to cost you. I don't recommend doing that often, but every once in a while, it does make sense to do that. But that is going to wrap up this basic tutorial on the Pro Cyclist Mode. There is so much more that it gets into in the depth of this. What to choose when you're leveling up, when to go for potential gains, but we talked about those at least in brief. Over time, you'll figure those things out. My recommendation to you, start with the Stage Racer. It's the most straightforward, the most glamorous. Start on Grand Champion. It's going to help you out the most. Don't start on Expert difficulty unless you've been doing it a long time. Build up to it over time. Build up to it with different playthroughs, different styles. Eventually, try out the others. Do a cobbled rider. Do a sprinter. Sprinter is not a bad way to start, though, besides the Stage Racer. But that does it for this Pro Cyclist review. Like I said, I do have a race basics tutorial, I do have an attributes tutorial, and I'll have a couple career mode tutorials coming in the near future. I'm Decathlon Gamer, thanks for checking it out. If you liked what you saw, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to see more, hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one, be safe out there, and bye for now.